Great. Thank you very much, Tavneet. So we're now going to take questions from all of you listening in. As a reminder, you can submit questions for Tavneet by clicking on the green bar at the top of your screen, and then click on the chat function and enter your question there. We may not have time to get everyone's questions, but if there are common ones, I'll try to grab those and put them together. So to get things started, I wanted to ask a question going back to...
Can I just say, Mark, I'm going to take you up on your offer. He offered to guarantee my loan always. He doesn't even know what trouble he's in.
Yeah.
You forget I was born and raised in Kenya. Go for it, Luke.
So I wanted to start with a question going back to the technology that you guys were offering. You mentioned that this is a relatively expensive technology. Did your team consider other water technologies, or in places where there's limited water access, is this considered sort of the best solution to limited water access?
Yeah, this is considered a decent solution. You could do pumps as well, but the problem with pumps, again, they're not going to make a good asset collateralized loan, right? The pump can easily be hidden somewhere in someone's house, right? So that wouldn't have worked. What we did do in the pilot was we tried two sizes, because we thought this was expensive. So we tried a 2,500 liter water tank, which is half the size, so half the loan approximately. And basically everybody who got offered that loan asked if they could upgrade to the bigger one, right? You know, so it seems like everybody wants these, and so we kind of told them they couldn't, and they were not super happy with us, right? So that's what we decided. That's why we settled on the bigger one. It was just everybody who got offered the smaller one goes, can I upgrade? Can I upgrade?
Yeah.
And they eventually took them when they realized they couldn't upgrade, but there was certainly this sense of strong demand for as big as possible.
Great. So we have a question from Justin, and he asked, can you think of other products that are not necessarily large or immobile, but are easily collateralizable for other reasons?
So I can tell you about a project we have in the field right now, which is a solar panel, which is quite small, and it's a very small solar panel. So don't think the big, massive ones you put on a house. Think of one about the size of my laptop, actually. And how that works is it's not collateralizable in the same way, but basically we're working with a tech entrepreneur from San Fran who has a way of making the panel inoperational. I don't know what the right word is. Inoperable. Inoperable. Yeah. Thank you, Luke. There's a reason Luke's around. Yeah. Correct all my words. So basically what the tech entrepreneur does is they can make it inoperable if you haven't paid. So the solar panel communicates with your mobile phone, and you pay over mobile money, and the minute you miss a payment, it kind of shuts the panel down. And so even though you don't ever go repossess the panel, you know, people want to pay it off because it's completely useless to them as an asset. So this is one way of thinking of, you know, it doesn't quite collateralize, but it incentivizes payment because the asset is not valuable. So if there's a way to do that, I think that's working quite well also in Kenya. But otherwise, you do need something that's hard to move, right? That's why, you know, cars are actually worse than our water tanks because it turns out cars have wheels. And so a lot of people actually, if you talk to car loan guys in the U.S., a lot of people disappear on the car and they can't find them. So, you know, I think the other way that might be possible in the future, which you would think could be done in cars now, is you could GPS tag in some way, and then you can trace the asset no matter how big. So if there's a way to, you know, most developing countries are very far from that, but if there's a way to trace the asset, then it works.
And no one tried to install wheels on the water tanks or anything like that?
It turns out no. Yeah, no wheel installations that we know of.
Great. So going back to the savings and credit cooperatives, you mentioned that these are a very common type of loan contract. Were you how many farmers of the farmers you're working with in sample had actual experience with loans? Was that something you looked at whether, you know, this was maybe something hard to understand for the farmers or something they had a lot of experience with?
So most of them didn't have loans from the SACO. Again, like I said, you know, when the binding constraint is I need a Luke and a Mark to guarantee the rest of my loans, that's kind of hard to pull together. So I think very few farmers had those. A lot of them had other sorts of loans, right? Loans from family, loans from friends. So a lot of people sort of have experience with some version of credit. you know, certainly not with an asset loan. We'd never seen that before, and that was certainly not common.
Yeah.
But I think they've had experience with loans. They seem to, you know, they seem to understand the concept of interest and repayment, and that never was really a problem.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question from Selma. Have you looked at any household impacts of the water tanks used for domestic purposes?
Yeah, it's mostly on the time use side, right? The household impacts are all on releasing girls' time because they're the ones collecting the water for the household. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out those girls go back to school. Now, like I said, in Kenya, enrollment rates are high because school is free. Primary schooling is free. And so, you know, you kind of get the last couple of percentage points of mm-hmm. girls schooling, but, you know, there's not a lot of room for big impacts there.
So when you're planning this study out, was for schooling outcomes something that you were planning to look at ahead of time, or you went into the baseline sample and saw the girls were missing school because of going to collect water? Or?
No, actually, we thought there would be schooling impacts, so we had asked, so we basically asked time use modules. Mm-hmm. And so it comes out of the time use modules, basically, that people are spending less time fetching water and less time taking livestock out. And mm-hmm. so, you know, and then the women actually also see smaller domestic water fetching. On the adult women, you know, we see a little bit of time release from that. It's not huge. And they spend the rest of the time socializing. Mm-hmm. So it's probably also a net gain for women in general.
Great. Now remember, you can submit questions by clicking on the green box at the top of your screen, and Tavneet is here for the next 10 or 15 minutes available to ask any questions about the study. I had another question related to herd size. So you mentioned that on average, these farmers had about 1 to 3 cows.
Yeah.
Was this intervention aimed at increasing the herd size in any way? Did you see people having the ability to purchase more cows, or is that sort of?
Yeah, no, so we didn't. I think if they wanted other loans, it would have been for cows. Now, it turns out, someone asked about collateral, right? Cows would make the most atrocious collateral in the world. And I mean that in a funny way as well as in a very serious way, right? In a serious way, the problem with using a live thing as collateral is that, you know what, if Luke really wants to default on the loan, he's just going to starve his cow. I'll come repossess the cow, but because he starved it, it's not worth anything based on what the loan was, right? And so you're very worried about these incentives because you can't preserve value of the asset. The value of the asset depends on what Luke invests in the asset. And so those would make really bad ones. But yeah, if you ask farmers, the next thing they would like is a loan for a cow. Mm-hmm. The production is not enough to cover anything quite like a loan of a cow, right? The production increases are small. They're there, but they're small. In general, I think what we do see is that they do seem to use the water in the rainy season for the cows. So we actually, I didn't show this, but it's in the paper. We see an improvement in cow health, actually. Okay. So the cows are less likely to get sick. And so it does have this knock-on benefit of cow health, which is probably where the productivity effects come from, is because you're just less likely to have issues with the cow because they're kind of, you know, better equipped to deal with anything.
Yeah. So the main reason they're getting sick, just a lack of water, or?
Probably, or just, you know, immune systems is my guess. Yeah. If you think of, you know, if you don't eat and drink regularly, drink water, I don't mean drink anything else.
Yeah.
Let it not be said that Jay Pollard told you to drink regularly. Sure. But, you know, if you don't eat food and drink regularly, then it's a problem. Right, and that's what they take cows out, right? They go for a day and just eat everything and drink everything in a day, and then they'll go back for 2 more days. Mm-hmm. So I think in general, it has to be that your systems are not particularly efficient in this scenario, right? It can't be that. So my guess is it's just coming through better overall health and immune systems, but I don't actually know enough about the biology of cows, really.
Sure. So if there are no more questions out there, I'll give you a few more minutes to enter any other questions you may have. I had one follow-up question just about maybe next steps for this study. Are there plans to do this study in other places or test different things about this particular study or scale it up in any way? Or
No, and yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we're designing another study anywhere. We've been talking to people about scaling it. So with the JPAL Africa group, we've been talking carefully to people in Rwanda and in Kenya to think about how to scale this. You know, it seems like a valuable asset for people and an interesting way to contract an asset. Yeah. So that's the plan. So hopefully there'll be more to come on the scale-up side, even if there's not more to come on the research side.
Great. So if there are no more questions, I think we're going to wrap up for today. I'd like to thank Tavneet so much for sharing her research today, and all of you out there for joining in and sending us your questions. For anyone you know who missed this presentation and may be interested, we'll be posting the recording from today on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks. And if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. You can share that via email at webinar@povertyactionlab.org. Thank you again to everyone for joining, and see you again.